Today on Cardiomedical Interviews, I have with me Dr. Abdul Haseeb. Doctor, can you just tell me what's your specialties? And I know that you've practiced both in Pakistan and America. So can you tell me your specialties? Did you change specialties in between? So can you tell me what happened? Like what's been your specialties and how many years have you practiced?
So I'm primarily a pediatrician, but I do have a specialty in allergy and immunology. I can see both adult and pediatric patients, but my primary practice is deals with kids, which is from birth to 21 years of age.
Okay. So we're gonna before we move on to the more interview part of the, interview, I have two questions for you. There's two. One is a really easy one is a really hard one. Which one do you want to go with first?
Let's start with the easy one first.
Okay, so the easy one is very simple. What to you is the meaning of life?
Hmm. That's an easy one.
Yeah?
Life. So as a human being, being alive, that's one. Uh, Enjoying what uh, God has given us, offered us regarding means of living, sleeping, getting up in the morning, breathing, enjoying family, uh, taking care of things, being helpful to other people, uh, doing things that we're supposed to do. That's what I would call life as.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then we have the hard one. This is a question that I had to answer when I was, when I submitted my application to cardiomedical, and it was, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Strawberry.
Me too. The easy one is because everybody listens to what's the meaning of life and they go, oh, I can understand this. Oh, this is easy and this makes sense. When you go, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? They're like, no, it's mango or it's or it's vanilla or it's chocolate. That's the hard question. So we already answered the questions for specialization on, and so you're still currently practicing pediatrics here?
Yes, I'm practicing pediatrics. In fact, I never practiced back uh, in Pakistan. So I graduated and pretty much came back after passing my US exams. So I didn't have much chance to practice at all in Pakistan. So all of my practice for the past 30 years have been pretty much here in USA.
Okay, so you attend your medical school and you took your medical like school education in Pakistan, though, right?
Yes, yes.
So I had a conversation with another doctor about like a few days ago, and he told me that he took his USMLE in Pakistan. So did you do the same thing where you took your USMLE there? Okay.
Yeah. So I took, we didn't call it USMLE at that time. It used to be called day one and day two at that time. So I gave my exams back in the 80s. So, and I gave my first part in fourth year, which was a little bit unusual at that time because people usually would do the graduation first, work for some time, and after a year or two, they would decide whether they want to go England or USA, and then they would start working on the exams. So for me, my first part was given in fourth year, and as soon as before even I graduated, I'd given my part two. So I pretty much had planned what I wanted to do early on. So I come here as soon as possible after graduation.
So is it more what are the is was the USMLE more challenging for you because you took it like while you were still studying?
Well, I was always a very studious guy, so passing exam was never a concern for me. The concern that I had was that how great my scores would be. So passing was never an issue. I'd put enough time through my first 4 years that there was no doubt that I would pass. Alhamdulillah.
That's good to hear. So what initially inspired you to get into medicine? Like, I mean, coming from Desi families, a lot of times we have like
Yeah.
family expectations to be like engineering or things like that. Like my grandmother wanted me to be an engineer. I didn't really have an interest in a career until I started volunteering at the masjid clinic. So what was that sparked like the initial desire? Was it your parents? Did you have like some experience? Did you just get
For me,
interested?
yeah. So for me, um, my dad was a civil engineer, and my mom was a teacher. So, and in the 70s, I think the engineers went through kind of a bad patch regarding jobs and stuff in Pakistan. We had just gotten through a war with India in 71. So civil engineering was pretty hard to get jobs. Then I had a few uncles in my family who were doctors too. So, but engineering was never even a thought process for us growing up. So my parents had always pushed us towards pre-med, and that was it. So we are five brothers and sisters, with three brothers and two sisters. All of our brothers are doctors. So growing up, that's the only thought we had. It's still in our minds that, and it just came natural too for me. I was never good in math, so engineering was totally out of question for me. And the only thing I was good in was literature and I would say biology. So that came natural. And I was always good with kids. So I guess that's why pediatrics was something that I pursued.
Do you think part of the reason, like, people like I mean, I'm also, like, bad at math, but do you think part of the reason, like, why I mean, the reason I don't really like math or, like, chemistry as much as I like biology is that so much of it feels, like, abstract, and but biology feels like there's, like, a certain logic to it because it's, like, a studied system of, like, the human body or, like, cells, and there's a logic to it that makes sense. Even though you're learning new things about how genes work and they're, like, these tiny things, but it always feels, like, a little more concrete and, like, real compared to, like, math. It's just numbers.
So my dad used to say regarding math to me was that for some kids, math just comes easy. So the moment that professor starts writing on the board, the kid is already getting ideas of how it's going to proceed. So for me, he used to say, just practice, practice, and practice. So, and again, I guess also a lot depends on your teachers around you, how much they influence you to delve deep into a certain subject. So I think for math, at the same time, physics, I don't think I had good teachers. So I think our brain is way advanced for us to get limited that we're not good in math. So I think if I would have put enough effort or looked for tools to make me understand math better, I think I could have done better in math. So I think our mind is just too great to have to say that just math just doesn't come to me at all. Yeah, this is probably would have been harder, but the way I was raised back home, math had very minimal input in what you would be in down the road. Like in USA, you have to be at least average good in math to get into medicine because physics is math based, chemistry is math based. You have to take stats, you have to take calculus. Those are all math based subjects. So you just cannot be BAD bad in math and get into med school. You have to be just enough to at least be average to understand and just go get over those subjects. So I guess the requirement for math in here is a little bit more different than we had back home. We could just get away with math and get into med school without much effort at all. But I personally feel that if I would have put enough effort, I would have done okay.
I
Or if I
think
would have gotten better teachers, I would have done okay.
I definitely understand, like, teachers and the practicing mentality. Like, I've had to take calculus. Like, I've had difficulties throughout math, like, my entire time. Like, when I was in high school, I think what had me, like, a really big advantage was that my algebra teacher was really good, and all of my math teachers, by their own rights, were really good. And coming here with learning calculus was that it's still my least favorite subject. I've taken Calc 1 and Calc 2, and even if I've still consistently made, like, good grades, and I think part of that reason was that I just brute forced just a lot of time into practicing. I think there's definitely you're definitely right about practicing can definitely just take over whatever your natural sort of desire to not like it or be good at it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For me, anything math comes up, my mind just automatically shuts down. It's like, hey, I've done what I needed to in my life. I've achieved my goals as far as becoming a doctor is concerned, so I don't need to pay any extra interest at all in math. So, but I always say that some people are just blessed with that mathematical mind. Even in math, if you think about it, you'll have people who are good in algebra, but they would just not get the geometry concept. You know, so I guess the mind just works in different ways, or it's just harder for them. They'll be great in algebra one, algebra two, but the geometry part might just be a little block for them. So, um, but again, I said I strongly believe that anything is achievable. It's just a matter of putting the mind together.
Right. What is like the process of education that allows you to be a physician in Pakistan? I mean, I think a lot of my audience and our audience probably knows what's the process of becoming a physician here. But what was like the difference in Pakistan?
So in Pakistan, the subjects that we used to take were quite different. I, I told my kids, in fact, it was just yesterday that I took botany and zoology. There was no biology. So they kind of chuckled and stuff and like, really? Botany and zoology? I'm like, yes. So there wasn't much of human biology at all for us through those years in high school and elementary and middle school, or for that matter, through 2 years of college. So that was different. In here, you guys learn human anatomy and biology very early on, genetics very early on. So pretty much for me, once I got into med school, it was all new. But I always loved information. So that made it easy for me to go through med school. So I was ready to put enough time, and like I said, I always was good in learning information and breaking it down, and uh, I was always good in memory too. So, but just enjoying the whole process, I think made me go through med school in a much more easier way. The path through med school is very different, though, which is the path to get into med school is very different for us there. There's just 10 years of high school, just 2 years of college, and then you go and get into med school, which is 5 to 6 years. In here, 12 years of high school, 4 years of college, and then 4 years. So it's a little bit different. So the requirements that we had, um, there was no sociology, there was no psychology, there was no calculus for us, there was no um, stats there as a prerequisite core subject for to enter into med school. For us, it was just physics, chemistry, zoology, botany, and then you had to have your literature, English and Urdu. So,
And
so that was, the subjects were very different. So you guys enter med school very much well rounded compared to us. Like I said, we had no clue at all about human physiology or anatomy or genetics at all. Like we had zero. But then we also go through a year or so extra of med school than you guys do in here, 4 versus 5 to 6 back home.
yeah, that makes sense. Do you think like did you have like a your version of like the MCAT? I had a conversation with another person who told me that they've reinstituted like the MCAT like back in Pakistan again, or they had like their own
Not
medical
for us.
college entrance exams.
Not for us. For us, it was just 2 years of your college, and that GPA basically decided you whether you would get into med school or not.
Okay. Would that make it like more challenging for you? Like would it would like does that give you an advantage that you're only like it's only your last 2 years of like your education, and if you had the practice to
Yep.
be better, like a better
100%, yeah.
student?
100%, yeah. No research required, no volunteership required, no interviewing required. Just 2 years of your and that also only your college finals. That pretty much decided. There was no semester exams. There was no uh, yearly exams. It was your final two exams at the end of the year would decide whether you would become a doctor or not.
Okay. So I guess I wrote it out in my interview questions, like what was the process of transitioning from Pakistan to like the US? But since you've almost like always practiced, a lot of those like questions were a little bit different. But how did your medical education in Pakistan help you with the USMLE? Like the exams that you took to be certified as a doctor.
It was not at all
So you basically self-studied entirely?
self-study entirely. Yeah.
What was that like?
Like I said, for me, putting in hours was never an issue. So I would easily study 12, 14 hours every day. Pretty much that's it. So go to the library at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, come back 10 o'clock for months and months and months and months when I was studying for my steps. So once you put in enough hours, uh, things pretty much fall in place.
I kind of like there's a part of me that wishes that there was that colleges would have at least here in the US would have at least a specific degree pathway that's specifically like tailored towards pre-meds, or like a basis where you learn subjects that will help you like in your pathways of medicine that help you both with your prerequisites and also get you like whatever degree that you're trying to go for, because there's like well, like for me, I have to like take the extra steps of planning out both of my major and my minor, and also making sure that my prerequisites are being taken care of. And then you also have to juggle, you're studying for like the MCAT. There's a huge part of me that feels disappointed that the entire subjects for like general chemistry, calculus, and of all the subjects that I'm going to take are only there as a basis of knowledge I can build up so that I can study for the exam later on. Like I have for the MCAT later on that I have to buy the
You
books to
say
learn
that
it.
getting into med school is one of the most difficult thing after 4 years of college, right? You look at engineering or dentistry or optometry, physician assistant. So I think I personally feel that this is a weeding out process. Organic chemistry, throwing organic chemistry in there, throwing in physics, chemistry in there. It's just a way that they just need to. They just probably are looking for a way to weed out the more smarter, harder working kids. Uh, but just remember that you can still, as electives, take lots of stuff that's going to help you out in med school. So you can take anatomy, you can take genetics, you can take physiology. Uh, all those things are stuff that can help you through your med school. Through your 4 years of college, you can definitely take some electives, which will really, which are really geared towards med school. So anatomy is there for you to take as electives. There's physiology there. You can take some genetics, which you guys already have done through high school and stuff. So there's definitely stuff there that you can help yourself with.
So basically, it's like the undergrad process is harder and it helps you weed you out more. But if you're able to go through like,
It's harder, but it definitely makes you a well-rounded person to enter med school. You can do so much with your 4 years of med school with what you guys enter with. The background of your physiology, the genetics you've done through high school, and all this stuff. And even I guess eventually taking that physics, that chemistry, getting your mind to go through all those crazy equations and stuff. I'm sure it prepares you for something out there.
right. How did so you started your practicing in like in the US immediately after being a physician, taking your medical education in Pakistan. So how did your medical education in Pakistan prepare you or help you in practicing medicine in the US? Is there like is there anything like different about your knowledge of how doctors practice in Pakistan versus here? And like you're adapting to the American healthcare system?
So 30 years ago, things were a little bit more different in med school, and the way uh, the clinics were arranged back in Pakistan. And they've definitely changed though over the years. So now, for example, they've put an MCAT in there for even for kids to enter med school. Uh, the clinics are done more vigorously now than probably uh, they were done at that time back in Pakistan. So really, the training pretty much starts from zero. You know, um, for me, I was lucky enough to finish my med school and come here right away. So I was pretty much fresh. I didn't spend many years. A lot of people back, uh, many people have come in here, or most of them have come in here, have spent a few years before they would start giving their exams and pass. It would be an average of 3 to 5 years before they would even come here. So for me, pretty much, I finished my med school and came here the next year.
Did you have any trouble with like getting residencies? I understand like a lot of people
Yeah.
who study outside, it takes them like years and potentially building up like a first like a network of people that they know to be able to get residencies first. Did you have any like difficulties with that?
For us back in the day, we're talking about back in 1991 when I came here first. So things were much more easier that time. There's always a cycle of openings in residency training, which happens every few years. So I was lucky to be in the years where the residency slots were pretty much wide open with minimal step scores. We were able to get into residency program. Although my scores were kind of, I would say, pretty a little bit above average, but those are good days though. Nowadays, any foreign graduate who comes over has to have a it has to go through lots of externship, some research, some volunteership. So it's definitely much more difficult for foreign graduates to start now than it was for me back 30 years ago.
So, what motivated you to establish your own clinic eventually? Can you like tell me like a little bit about how you started your practices? What were like some of the decisions you had to make along the process of having your own clinic?
So personally, I never saw myself as somebody who would do private practice. I always thought of myself as somebody who would go into academics. Um, so I finished my uh, pediatrics. Then to get residency here in this country, you have to go through a waiver process where you work in an underserved area for 3 to 5 years, which is what I did to go through my green card processing. And after that, I said, okay, you know what, I want to go back and pursue my academics career. So I chose allergy immunology as my fellowship. So in those 2 years of fellowship, those case presentations, those journal clubs, those research presentations, I just never felt comfortable as a somebody who can stand up in front of people and talk and and speak and stuff like that. And that kind of pretty much put a block in my whole thought process of getting into academics, because academics you need to do a lot of those things, teaching and stuff, especially in front of 300, 400 students. So that pretty much put a block on my whole thought process of getting into academics.
Can
And
you
then
like
like
tell me a little bit more about academics? Like did you mean like being a professor in like a
yeah,
medical
so
school?
getting into a teaching hospital, having a tenure where you would be associated with lots of research and education and training other residents and stuff like that. So that's the academic part. So
Okay.
luckily I had a friend of mine who did residency training in pediatrics with me from 1992 to 1995. And he had opened up his own practice in uh, 2000, around 2000. So while I was finishing my fellowship in allergy immunology in 2002, he got in touch with me in kind of 2001 or so, and he asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to come and join him in Houston, where I was before, leaving for fellowship from 1997 to 2000. And he already had a practice going, and he had just started practice 2 years ago. So when I joined him, he was already in practice for 2.5 years or so. Joined him, and then eventually became a full partner in a couple of years. And pretty much from there, we started with one clinic. Then we now, alhamdulillah, have 4 clinics.
Right. So when you say like partner, is it sort of how, like in law firms when they're like partners, they all have like a share in like the profits and the losses in that? Is that what it sort of means?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
whatever the revenue comes, if you're two partners, you divide 50-50.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as
Pretty
a
much,
physician,
he was a guy with all the business mind and who kind of established the practice. I just joined in and then became a partner.
so you
So
offered your own
I had the
expertise.
easy ride getting into private practice.
Right. So as a physician who like do you like run like your own clinic now, or are you like a sort of just manage the clinic?
So we have business managers. We have 4 offices. Each office has own go-to person. Then we have a central person who's watching over things. And we have our inputs here and there, but it's the business manager who really takes care of things.
Okay, so
We've hired
so
him
you're
certain salary.
you're part of like sort of the machinist to be the doctor.
Yeah. So basically, everything goes through us, hiring and firing and all that stuff. Uh, but the day to day, who came in, who didn't come in, and what are the issues, supplies, this and that, all those gets taken care of by other people.
Right. So do you have to like do you have any sort of aspects of managing both clinical duties and like any administrative duties? Is it like a you have to take care of like the hiring and firing and but you're also being the doctor who sees the patients?
Yeah. So there's always, so we've over the years we've tried to empower our business manager uh, as much as possible, so that our involvement in the day to day running business is very minimal, and we spend, so that we can spend most of our time with our patients. So that's the whole goal. Ideally, in an ideal world, our involvement should be 0% in the way the clinic is run. but you have to keep your eyes and ears open, see what's happening, what's not, and uh, but the fighting has to go through us. Hiring has to go through us pretty much. Um, Simple things like patients showing up, not showing up, patients coming on time, not coming on time. Uh, there are other providers that we have in our offices. If they're coming on time, how they're practicing, and so there are small things which come up here and there. So we do kind of have meetings every few months with our office staff, with our business manager, with our providers on a regular basis. So things come out, we try to iron them out, but it's just a process though. But in an ideal world, our involvement with the business should be pretty much zero in the ideal world, but that's not possible.
So but essentially, it's like you have along with however many partners there are who run the clinics, is that you
It's
basically
just me and
delegate as
one
much as you
person.
can. So you basically like delegate like the more business related tasks. I think that makes sense. I mean, it's like definitely plays to like everybody's strengths. You get to do what you're really good at, and the people who run the
Yeah,
business aspect
that's
do what
ideally
they're
true.
good at. No, that's good. So we're gonna go on for the more advisory portion. What
Okay.
advice do you have for like college and high school students who are considering like a career in medicine, particularly those who are from a cultural background, like diverse cultural backgrounds, or they've immigrated to the US? Are there like any specific challenges they should be aware of, and how can they like best navigate them?
Yeah. So high school, I would say to make sure that if they're really into going towards med school, make sure they take as many subjects as they can to get them better prepared for college. So I would say they should have at least AP chemistry, uh, AP biology, AP psychology. If they can take at least some good level physics up in there and put some effort in there. Uh, Stat will be great if they can throw in stats up in there too. Just getting the core subjects that you're going to get as pre-med in college. Take all advanced courses as you can through high school and try to do the best that you can, as well prepared as you can. Uh, just to pursue med school, it should be very clear that this is just a long journey, it's a long process, and you have to really uh, you have to do it on your own. Like you cannot have your parents just push you to be a doctor. It has really come from within you. You know that you really want it. But otherwise, it's going to be so hard. And not only those 4 years of college, even med school is hard. Especially the first couple of years is what I've heard. I didn't go to med school in here, but what I've heard and seen is that it's pretty rigorous and stuff. So unless and until you're totally into into it, it will be so hard for you to convince yourself to put in those hours and stuff. So the other thing I would say is that is the person has to have a good heart. Otherwise, uh, it's going to be hard for them to really enjoy it. The money part will automatically come. It's pretty much all average physicians. Probably, I'm not sure exactly how much or what's. And again, it depends on pediatrics, internal medicine, what you're doing, and all cardiologists and all this stuff. But pretty much, I'm assuming everybody earns at least 200,000 plus. So money, I think is not should not be a concern. But you should have, if you don't have as a human being empathy, then that person should not really be a doctor. That should be such a disservice to the patients and the community. So I would say, a person should really look inside and ask themselves if they have empathy or not. And actually, this is somebody who assumption is that is already skillful in academics, and so that they can pursue, because you have to be at least average good in math, and you have to have some skills, where you're doing pretty okay in your biology and psychology and other stuff. So you should know your skills through high school, whether you have those skills to pursue med school or not in college. And then you have to be really into it, further go down that road.
You spoke about like high school students. What about like what advice would you have for like the college students? Because I imagine a lot of people listening are probably
Yeah.
college students.
So for college students, I would say is that So to start with, you need to know the major that you want to take, right? There's so many majors out there that people pursue and end up in medical schools. There's kinesiology, psychology. The two common ones are I guess biology and biochemistry. Uh, so first you need to know what major you want to take and how it's going to help you out uh, in solidifying your goals towards med school. I think that would really become an individual decision for that person. I know people from our community who've taken biomedical engineering, which is pretty hard major to pursue, but I think that's really looked good upon by the medical school advisors and stuff. So the first thing would be is to make sure that you have proper major taken. That's number one. Do some good research in that part and see if that major really interests you or not. So, for example, if you're great in chemistry and you just love chemistry, hey, that might be the major for you. Then you take your other course studies on the side, and so it'll be a harder route though. For example, chemistry as your major because you're spending so much more time in chemistry where you won't have those subjects to deal with in MCAT. Uh, but that's just one of the things you need to think about what major you want to take. The other part is that try to get into your research part as early as possible. Try talking to people in your first year, early part of first year, your professors and stuff, if they have any opportunities available. So try to, show your face, start, showing yourself, ask questions properly so that your professor knows who you are. Try sitting in the front rows if you can. Take your lectures seriously. Uh, don't fall behind. Once your GPA falls behind in first, it's going to be so hard to catch up in your second year. Start volunteer early on so that you can over the course you can show the medical school advisors that you have done some meaningful volunteership down the road. Same thing applies to research too. Be very mindful of your time that you have through classes, because college is so different from high school, right? High school, you've got one class after another, and then you finish and you come back home. Then you have bulk of time to work on your subjects. But in college, it'll be one class, then 2 hours gap, then another class, then maybe 3 hours gap, and then bunch of classes on one day versus another day. So you should be really ready to utilize those free times into something meaningful. Hitting the library on a regular basis and having good company around yourself. I didn't go to college in here, so I probably won't be that helpful. I guess that's something which is universal, right? Uh, just being. I always tell my kids and everybody I meet is that just be honest to yourself. So if you're honest, then everything is just going to fall in place.
Do you have any advice for like students who have immigrated to here, who are like who might be new to high school, or who might be like new to college, and so like a lot of like the system that they're learning
Try
is like
to try to
entirely
find
new?
mentors as soon as possible. As soon as you enter high school, you need to start finding a mentor who's a year or two ahead of you. Make a good relationship with them because those mentors will end up in college, and those that mentorship should continue through college, and then they'll get into med school. So you have to have a few mentors, and that's I think it's really really important starting as early as high school, because a lot of kids just get lost once they start college. They've got no clue how many hours to take, what subjects to take, what major to take, when to start research, how to look for research, where to do volunteership, and then lo and behold, 1 2 years pass and they've got no clue when to give their MCAT and what was the best time to give MCAT, and this how to prepare your application. So I think mentorship really goes a long way. If you can find a good mentor that who's willing to help, because it's going to be hard. Because the mentor himself is going to be busy with other stuff. So if you can find a mentor that you have made some good relationships over the years, I think that really uh, help a lot.
I think that I definitely agree about like the mentor aspect of it. I think I started to get really sort of thinking about medicine sort of start of high school, and that made me want to take into like the pathways that were and classes that were more healthcare related. But there was so much of things that I didn't understand. Like It's a little bit of a shame to admit, but I didn't fully understand the medical school application process, the medical school process itself until after my senior year. I was sort of really understanding what the application process is like. I think mentorship is definitely one of the most critical things because so much of this process is convoluted and there's so many aspects you have to take care of to be able to be like a good candidate for medical school.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much, like I said, for us, it was just 2 years of college, your GPA pretty much yes or no to med school, and that's it. But for you guys, it's just so complicated and convoluted, like you said. Sub major to take, research, volunteership, GPA, it just goes crazy. So yeah, mentorship would really help a lot.